We've all seen films and tales about the Ouija board, believing them to be nothing but fictional horror stories meant to scare people with an overactive imagination. However, the following accounts are true stories that people have experienced who initially believed that it was just a game, not realising that playing with a Ouija board can open up portals that are almost impossible to close. The following are 5 Ouija board horror cases that might make you think before you play with a Ouija board. However, for the skeptics out there, never underestimate teenage hysteria. Case number 5. Some teenagers were playing with a Ouija board at a party, and initially, after asking many questions, there was no reply, and they were ready to give up playing. Then one of the girls suddenly screamed, saying she had just seen herself walk into the bedroom. Then a scratch mark appeared on her arm. They asked the board who was there, and it replied, "Death," followed by, "I want your flesh and blood." Terrified, they all ran out towards the door, but found they were locked in. Then the lights started flickering and objects were thrown around the room. One of the girls was dragged violently along the ceiling. They begged the Ouija board to leave them alone, but the board replied that their screams made it powerful. They decided to destroy the Ouija board, whereas the door flew open, allowing most of them to escape, except for one unfortunate girl who became trapped inside when the door suddenly slammed shut. They eventually broke open the door and found the girl lying unconscious on the floor. She never fully recovered. They later found that the entity was the half-brother of one of the women who had died in an accident. Case number 4. Cindy was 13 when a friend let her borrow a Ouija board, and Cindy and her older sisters often played with it. However, Cindy started to become obsessed, continuing to ask it questions. One day, whilst alone in the house, she set the board up in her bedroom, and the planchette started to move across the board and spell out H-I. Cindy then asked, "Who are you?" And it replied, J-A-K-E. Jake was a friend who had died in a car accident. Every day after school, she played with the board in her bedroom, but after a few days, the conversations became darker and angrier. By the second week, Cindy had the impressions that she wasn't talking with Jake, but something sinister. By the end of the second week, it had revealed itself as a dark entity and started threatening her. The negative experience damaged her emotionally, and she was hospitalised with trauma. Case number 3. The following story happened to a 15-year-old in 1995 who, whilst they were playing with the Ouija board, the planchette rose off the board with their fingers still on it, leading them upstairs and down again. They initially believed it was playful until glasses started breaking. Objects were moved when they were out of the house, and other objects started vanishing. Torn up pieces of paper became whole again. In bed, she would wake up paralysed with pressure on her chest and feelings of being choked and not being able to scream for help. One day, she woke up with a mysterious key in her hand, but could not find what it opened, and so placed it in her jewellery box, but later found that it had been moved from the box to under a stuffed animal in her bedroom. The house became dark with tension in the air, with everyone arguing. The parents separated and the house was sold. Case number 2. Angela's story began when she received a message from her dead father at a spiritualist meeting warning her about using a Ouija board. Not heeding the warning, one night Angela and some friends decided to play with the board. They asked, "Who is it you want to speak to?" And the glass spelled out A-N-G-E-L-A. But then it spelled out "Die bitch" as the living room door slammed shut. Angela asked, "Who are you?" And it spelled out that it was murdered, just like you're going to be. Angela asked again, "But who are you?" And it spelled out S-A-T-A-N. And with that, the glass flew off the table and smashed into the wall. A few weeks later, Angela and her friends again played with the board. But that night, Angela woke screaming from a nightmare. She dreamt she was being attacked by a man carrying a hammer. was the Ouija board influencing her dreams. One day, on leaving the house, she was walking down a stairwell when suddenly behind her a voice growled, "Die, bitch," and she turned to see a man in a white t-shirt bring a hammer down on her head. Drenched in blood, she made her way to the front door and collapsed, later waking up in hospital with a fractured skull. She now lives in fear, terrified it will return and finish the job, just as the Ouija board had warned. No one has ever been caught, and Angela feared the spirit's prediction will one day come true. Case number 1. Some teenagers were playing with a Ouija board at a friend's house, and a short time later it spelt out, "Open you give." Then the computer started booting and rebooting by itself really fast. A bowl on the table started to spin around slowly on its own. A fox terrier started pacing up and down the hallway, and all of a sudden it attacked its owner by jumping at her throat, then went back to pacing again. One of the girls looked out of the window and under the street lighting screamed that something was moving about in her car. They all went home terrified by the ordeal. The next morning, as one of the guys was getting ready for school, the radio switched itself on and was racing through the stations. But all of a sudden a voice said, "Do you feel that something evil will happen to you?" Then went to static. A couple of weeks later, whilst he was laying in bed at night unable to sleep, something caught his attention. He was staring at the bottom of his bedroom door when a shadow passed by, paused for a second, then moved on. He got up and found that all his family were fast asleep. If you like our content and want to support Weird World, why not share your thoughts and hit that like and subscribe button? Our goal is to reach 30,000 subscribers. See you next week, folks, and remember, keep it weird.